I find it almost funny to admit that I indeed have a soft spot for the Elantra nameplate. This car represents beginnings to me. It's the car with which Hyundai first tried to show the Indian buyer that it can make more than just small cars. And hey, it was also CND's very first car review, the third generation Hyundai Elantra. But a lot has changed since then. That Elantra never did capture our imagination, and its successor never even came to India. But now we have the fifth generation car ready to enter our market after taking many others by storm. I first drove this Elantra in November 2010, shortly after its debut in Korea, while on a trip to Seoul. Called Avant in Korea, it caught my eye then too for its futuristic and gorgeous curves and its intense road presence. It also seemed more of a driver's car than the earlier Elantras. The perfect expression of what Hyundai calls the fluidic sculpture, styling or design language really comes through on the Elantra. Now, I think what I'm trying to say is that it's been perfected to some extent. It started with the Sonata globally, and then of course you had it on the Verna, you had it on this car, perhaps even before the Verna actually. But it's just got everything going for it in terms of looks. Having said that, just the face of the car isn't very friendly. It's not like a happy face, but that's, you know, different people see it differently. That's how I see it. It's this particular element which you also see in the i10. That's the part which to me says it looks a little mean. But you know what? That's not a bad thing necessarily. The real sort of beauty of it though comes through in the headlamp and in the way the hood has been styled. The metal here, it's just been beautifully curved, and the headlamp sweeps upwards both sides. Lots of layering, lots of things going on inside. The front bumper, very sporty, all in keeping with that same fluidic sculpture. On the side too, it's the same thing. You're seeing these flared wheel arches and you're seeing lots of definition. All of this, remember, is something that now Hyundai has perfected. It's sort of come together beautifully. So lots of concave and convex surfaces on the side. And then baby got back, because really this is the part of the car which to me I think is perhaps one of the most beautiful design expressions in global automobiles today. And that's saying a lot, isn't it? It's a strong statement I'm making. But just look at it. I mean, the way this tail lamp just sweeps through here in the rear 3/4, it looks alive, it looks organic, and I think that's just brilliant. It is a big, fat, heavy bumper. Baby got back, right? So it does have that, but it doesn't look heavy. It doesn't look sort of incongruous with the rest of the design. I think it all works beautifully. The rear of the car, the real winner for me when it comes to the styling, and oh boy, is it going to get a lot of attention on our roads as well.
Baby got back like open.
So Hyundai mix a lot on this one, and it's got it right. But once you get past those gorgeous looks, you realize this beauty too has her flaws. The incongruous shut lines and fit still seem to have the old Korean image hangover. Having said that, the Elantra is still very much the beauty pageant winner, and overall build quality more or less equals the rivals, except the Skoda and VW offerings, which are superior. The car I'm driving today is the diesel, and Hyundai has played it smart by offering this fuel variant for India only. That's right, the company tells me that there ain't no diesel Elantra nowhere else, baby, with 1.6 and 1.8 petrols only. But we get this CRDI motor, which is thanks to Hyundai carrying out an intense market study in India and then leaning on the boys in R&D to deliver. And they have. They've done a fine job by bringing us the same VGT engine as the Vernas, but giving it a very different character. Specs are similar though, with 126 horses coupled to 260 Nm of torque. And yes, there is an option on the transmission. And that's typically Hyundai, bombarding us with variants and options. So besides this diesel, you do get the 1.8 VT petrol too, with 147 bhp on tap. The company is likely to offer 6 variants on debut, with 6 colors, and that includes a red and a bronze too. Okay, so we've got good bits and we've got bad bits. Let's start with the good bits. Remember, this is just the diesel, so I haven't driven the petrol as yet. But, you know, it is that engine itself which I think is the real gem. It is smooth in terms of its acceleration. It gives you really good response. It gives you the right amount of power. And even though the gearbox is a little bit antiquated, it downshifts quickly enough so you get that burst of power when you need it, and it cruises really well too. Now, speaking of cruising, that is where the bad bits come in. And you know, when you're at a high speed, and especially out on a highway like this, I don't expect a whole lot of you to be doing that, but really high speeds in excess of 150 or so, the rear of the car seems to hang out a bit. It also gets a little light and bouncy, and remember, a lot of owners are going to be in the back. They're not going to like that very much, but otherwise, overall, the ride is really comfortable. But before I get into the comfort, the other quick bad bit I want to get out of the way is the steering. It is an EPS. It does what you want it to do, but it's not precise. It's not direct enough. You don't get as much of the road as you'd like. And for a car this size especially, and given the fact that the handling is good, I would have liked that. I would have liked a little bit more of a sporty feel, a little stiffer feel, if you will, on the steering wheel. So that's a little bit disappointing. Now, speaking of that ride comfort, driving position, overall ride comfort, I think that will be the big USP and highlight of this car, and something that a lot of people are going to like. The car comes with a whole lot of goodies, some standard and some only on the top end, like stability control, hill assist control, reverse camera and parking sensors, 6 airbags and ABS. It's not just the features or the gadgets, but the color palette and just the way it's laid out tells you straight away that you're inside a fluidic Hyundai model, and that's because it reminds you of the Verna, a little bit of the Sonata. And you know what, I've always said this, that I've never liked the pairing of grey and metal tones with beige, but somehow, because of perhaps the richness of the tone that's been used and fairly apparently good level of plastic, it all comes together. It doesn't look too bad, and I think people will like that. Looks upmarket. In fact, the overall central console looks very upmarket, funky in fact too, because that's pretty much what Hyundai has gone for, right? Fluidic on the outside and perhaps funky on the inside. So it looks modern, and especially the climate control system here looks a whole lot nicer than the one in the Verna as well, because it just looks, again, very modern, very funky. It's got lots of good features, including individual temperature settings for both sides. The instrument cluster, again, reminds you of the Vernas, and that's where I have a little bit of a problem, because while it looks nice in terms of layout and it's nice and bright, just the interface, you know, just kind of graphics you see in the little screen here, lots of information, lots of features, but just the kind of graphics you see, not as slick as or as modern as the rest of the package. Now, the steering wheel, though, the column is adjustable for reach as well as height, so that's always a good thing. I love that. Find a much better position. In the top end model, the driver's side seat is also electrically adjustable. There is keyless entry, of course, in the top end, just like the Vernas do, so that's not surprising. It is a convenient thing to have, and also a start-stop button, which once again, when you're sitting in the driver's seat, you can't really see it, but it's still a better position, better placed than the one in the Verna. Those front seats also have ventilation for cooling them, by the way, somewhat like the Sonata's rear seat. Well, the only bummer for me was that Hyundai still hasn't mated its entertainment system's USB plug-in to the iPhone 4. Though it does work with an iPod, I'm told. You can still use the Bluetooth option to play music, besides using your phone, of course. At the back, space is ample. The drop-down armrest is substantial and includes stereo controls. But I'd like way more under-thigh support, thank you very much. The rear AC vents are always welcome. So how much will this car cost? Well, it arrives in the second week of August, and I expect pricing to stay between 12 and 15 lakh rupees for the petrol and 13 and 16 lakh rupees for the diesel variants. This includes the automatics and all frills at the top. Anything higher than that, of course, would be suicide, and frankly, even 16 lakhs may be too high, frankly. But it's nice to have a diesel with the Autobox option. I spent a couple of weeks in the US last month, and boy did I see a whole lot of these driving around. Now, you know, the Elantra has traditionally done well in a market like the US because it was always the entry-level, sort of cheap, affordable sedan. But now it's doing well because of just the way it looks. It looks upmarket, it is stylish, and people want one. It gets your attention on the road. And I think that's really what's going to work for it in its second innings here in India too.